We are now recording. Over to you. When you're ready,
All
Amy.
right. Alex, I am going to, well, hang on one second. I'm going to share. I have a presentation on Canva. So,
we can see it.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Can you see it?
We see it, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. You're awesome. All right. So I have kind of a slideshow, and I'm hoping to talk for about 15 minutes. The slideshow keeps me on track and keeps me from blabbling. So, but then I'd love to open it up for, discussion or questions or, sharing. I'm not sure what you guys usually do, but I am Ame Vanorio, and I have a small nonprofit called Fox Run Environmental Education Center. I'm also a licensed special education teacher and science teacher. I'm kind of semi-retired. I am an author, and I started talking about climate anxiety because I have climate anxiety, and I was working with a number of college students, and was hearing from them that they had a lot of climate anxiety. So I started to put more energy into thinking about it. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about climate anxiety, or sometimes we say eco-anxiety, and talk about some coping strategies. And I do want to say that, so I'm not a professional, I'm not a psychologist or a doctor. So, if these kinds of things are not alleviating, the stress or the mental health concerns you have, then, see a professional. So I was raised in rural Kentucky. I was blessed with an indigenous grandmother who used to take me out in the woods all the time, and we would go foraging, and she would tell me stories. I identify as an eclectic pagan, and I've always been very passionate about wildlife habitat and conservation and kind of, protecting the woods. When I was younger, I had a lot of anxiety, and, I was doing a lot of things like rescuing orphan kittens and, squirrels, and I had them, all in my closet in my bedroom. But, my parents took me to therapy, but nobody ever really identified, those as being targets. And, they looked to more societal pressures and things that were happening, of the day, but, those connections with, the ecology and the environment weren't really things people thought about back then. But now we know a lot more about the relationship between eco-anxiety and mental health. Especially now, climate change is very, very real for us. After two major hurricanes in the country, I think a lot of people are really feeling, dread and despair with that. So many states were affected. But I did want to acknowledge your group, and thank you for, all you are doing for the environment and for climate change. So climate anxiety manifests itself in many ways. It can be, anger or grief or dread, hopelessness, frustration, and all of these are very normal, reactions. So the official definition of eco-anxiety is a chronic fear of environmental doom. So, we're going to talk about some coping strategies, and hopefully some of these, resonate with you. So our physical and our psychological reactions to climate change are very much, rooted in our biological makeup. Even though we consider ourselves very evolved, whenever we perceive a threat, we have a flight, a flee, or a freeze reaction. So, these reactions developed, hundreds of thousands of years ago. They've stayed with us because even though, our society has progressed and definitely technology has progressed, evolution moves very, very slowly. So when we still, perceive danger, we think predator. All right, so someone who tends to have a flee response may be a climate denier or not want to discuss it, while a fight response can manifest itself in activism. So that person wants to get out and talk to people and let people know that this is an issue. And some people have that freeze response to the climate crisis, which is often eco paralysis, is what the psychologists, what the term they use. And that can lead to just kind of totally avoiding it. It can lead to depression. It can lead to despair. And so, we have these various reactions, and you might, your reactions may change. Nothing is set in stone there. So as of right now, in the official world of psychology, there is no official diagnosis for climate or eco-anxiety. It still falls under generalized anxiety or depression. I've seen quite a bit of professional development on the topic. So psychologists and psychiatrists are learning more about it and how they can help people. Hopefully soon it will have its own definition because that will lead to better mental health care. So we want to start by, doing some self-reflection, checking in with ourselves. How are you mentally, physically, spiritually? Taking an honest inventory. Do you have a safe place? This can be a physical place, or it can be a mental place that you visualize. But often when we're, feeling very stressed, it gives us something tangible to help us feel more calm. And your safe place can change. So I lived in Kentucky, and I actually lived off the grid for 29 years. I had a little cabin in the woods, and my children grew up and moved north. And so I ended up moving to Wisconsin a couple of years ago, and I've become obsessed with all the lakes. And so my kind of safe place has changed, and now it's become water and, the lakes. So I live a short distance from a lake, and kind of kayaking and just going out and looking at that water has become my kind of calm, safe place. For those of you who are pagans, it's also been kind of interesting that I've really also gravitated to water deities during this time as well. They help me feel stronger and safer. So it's just been kind of interesting for me to me. So it's important to learn and recognize how our body reacts to stress. So it's normal, to have these very physical reactions. Often, we get quickness of breath or trouble breathing. Everything for me goes into my digestive system, and I get a stomach ache whenever I'm stressed out or nervous. So getting to know your reactions is very helpful. So for instance, if I have a stomach ache, I don't think, oh, I ate something bad. I think, what am I stressed out about? So, kind of getting to know your body and what triggers you. So this is kind of a gentle reminder to, practice some of these things. I know that, all of our lives are very hectic, and, it's a practice what you preach thing, because I don't necessarily do all of these things every day either. But I try to, know that I need to make this time. So I'm going to start out with these are some pretty basic things. I actually do this presentation for high school environmental clubs. I do that, and I give them, the kids, a book, my climate anxiety book, because it has lots of things you can do in the book. So forgive me if you think some of these are very beginner for you. Also, if you're a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or uncle, I think that, no one talked to me about eco-anxiety, and I really didn't talk to my children about it. I think it's just become much more recent and something, to talk about with, the younger members in our families, because, we're increasingly disconnected from nature, from the earth. I'm probably dating myself, but, I was a little kid before the internet. So, my life was playing outside. But, kids today have very different experiences. And so, talking to them about eco-anxiety and, having experiences with nature, I think is, important. So grounding is just a self-soothing technique that can help with anxiety. So it involves focusing on physical things around you to bring yourself back to the present. So the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is finding like 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 you can taste. So, you're using your senses to kind of reach out to tangible things. And a lot of times when we're feeling very anxious, we're just, kind of escalating, and it helps to like identify these things, things that are tangible right there around you. Also, putting your hands in water is very, I think, very relaxing. I've already said how much I love water now, but obviously not just letting the water run, in a sink, because then, I personally then would feel like, oh no, I'm wasting water. But I like to fill a bowl with water and just set my hands in it. So that's something that works with me. If you have children, these calm strips. If you have children, I have one on my phone. They're tactile strips, and just that touching something tactile in that figure 8 shape is actually very soothing. So dropping anchor is similar to grounding. And I've actually taught students this. So you're connecting your body, with the earth. And so you start out by wiggling your toes, wiggling your fingers, getting down, so you're kind of feeling rooted. And also, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling angry, identifying those feelings, when you're grounding yourself. I can't watch the news because I yell at the television, because I get upset because, somebody is there going, oh, climate change is a hoax. Or something about the, fossil fuels are necessary. These things upset me. And so then I'm, saying unkind things to my television or my computer. So identifying those things and saying them out loud, so you're kind of expelling them. And taking a deep breath and pushing, down into your feet. I personally like to take off my shoes. That's more a personal choice, but, pushing our feet into the floor, standing up tall, raising your arms over your head and pushing your fingers together. It's very much like the mountain pose if you do yoga, but very much kind of grounding yourself. And, that can help. Meditation is a great way to calm your body. I personally like to use guided meditation because I have an ADHD brain, and I am probably not the best meditator because my brain just starts going in different directions. I don't know if Debbie Phillips is in your group. She is a CCL person, and she has a wildlife group.
Just to let you know, Debbie is an amazing, almost always here part of our group.
She is awesome. She is very awesome. I first got to know her because I was doing wildlife rehabilitation, and I had seen her, and I had texted her because I had a turtle question. But anyway, I love her podcast. She has a podcast, My Shamanic Life, and she often does guided meditation. And so that's one that I listen to. But meditating, calming, centering ourselves. So getting outside, even in winter, I'm having a little bit of a harder time with this because I came from Kentucky to Wisconsin, and I don't like snow. And I'm not a big winter person. It's really pretty if you look out the window and you look at it. But when you have to go out there, it's maybe not as pretty. I've learned since I've been in Wisconsin. One, I had a farm in Kentucky which I sold to come up here, and my first winter I hid from the snow, and I started feeling much more stressed out and much more kind of letting this recorder of all these things that were going on in the environment that weren't good, kind of were running in my head. And I realized, I was hiding from the snow. I wasn't going outside. And I think that made a significant difference, honestly, in my mental health. And
just a time check to let you know we have about 9 more minutes, just to let you know.
Oh, I talk too much. So get outside, get those endorphins going. There was a really good study that was published in scientific reports that found that spending at least 120 minutes a week in nature is associated with good health and well-being. So I know I wanted to give some time if there were questions and things, so I'm kind of looking and skipping around. But going outside, spending time with your animals, if you have pets. I always tell wildlife rehabbers that, spending time with wildlife is a little bit different because it's a crisis situation. That's a stressful experience. So we really shouldn't count that as a, stress relief. But getting out with, pets, family, four-legged family is a good thing. But I will, let's see, I'm going to wrap this up a little bit. So imagine yourself walking into a better place because you're making a difference. And I do have a slide, and I can send this to you, Andrea. It is.
If at all possible, we would love, if you're comfortable with giving me a copy of either a link to this presentation or the presentation, I know people would love to take a look at it, or any part of it that you're comfortable with sharing.
I can do that. It's actually, there's a version of it that I haven't yet posted yet, but I was going to put on my YouTube. But
yeah,
I can
or send me a link to your YouTube you haven't done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to leave space and time for other things. I don't want to get into that, but I just wanted to mention that several people have mentioned that they would love to get a copy of this.
Awesome. So if anybody has questions, comments, so Alex.
Yeah, I'll go first. I want to emphasize and double down on something you said and then ask you a quick question, Amy, if I can. But I really appreciate you bringing the topic of climate anxiety to focus. That's definitely something I've personally struggled with. Reverend Debbie has connected me to some good resources about it in the past. But I want to emphasize that like you put out a whole bunch of tools here to help people ground in their body. And in my experience, the most important thing is to find what works for you. Some of these might work for you, and if they do, great. If not, you can throw them in the trash and find other ones that work. But the point is, we've all got different things that are activating our sense of anxiety, and finding a way to ground and get through that anxiety is so important because we are all here to do the work. Here at CCL, right, we want to influence policy at the national level, but we've got the work of building community to do, of caring for our local environments. And if we're succumbing to anxiety and getting into despair, we're not able to do that work. So the anxiety does not serve us. And it's all about finding something that helps us get through that anxiety to do the work. So thank you.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I just really want to quickly read. Maka, do you want to say what you said, or do you want me just to read it? Because you put some nice comments on the chat.
Oh, I just said cats neutralize bad vibes and they dissipate anxiety. That's been my experience as a cat owner for 80 plus years.
That's right. Amy, my question for you is, you mentioned you took this talk to high schools, and I was wondering what kind of stuff you were hearing from the younger generation, and what climate anxiety tools resonated the most with those audiences.
I'm hearing a lot. It really, for a while I kind of thought I'm feeling this way because I'm a, big environmentalist and I'm in this wildlife rehabilitation work. And when I started talking, to young people, my daughter-in-law had gone back to school for her master's in environmental science, and I was talking with her friends, and I was talking to high school students, and I realized kind of how broad this problem is, and there is a lot of concern. And I do think a lot of this younger generation does feel very disconnected. You know, when I would say things like, you know, get outside every day, they were like, every day? You know, well, I went hiking a couple of weeks ago, and it is a little bit, and I'm not saying, you know, that's wrong or anything. I just feel there's a greater distance between, you know, needing that nature connection on a daily basis and maybe not. But they are expressing a lot of concerns about, you know, climate change and use of fossil fuels and, you know, habitat loss. A lot of young people, and this might be just because my son and my daughter-in-law both use bikes for transportation, but I've met a lot of high school students and college students who are, you know, not going to do the car thing, you know, that
And
are
by the way,
interested.
I think that's great. And I want to give time for Jeff has a
Okay.
questions, and we got 3 more minutes. So I'm going to
Okay.
over to Jeff.
Yes.
Oh,
Hi,
thanks.
Jeff.
Hi there. I'll be quick. Thank you, Fox. You presented a great topic and have some really good suggestions on how to kind of abate the anxiety a bit. I just wanted to say that I'm the resilience or the personal resilience action team leader. And so if there's anybody here that wants to delve into this more deeply, you can either join our action team. We have a weekly support group. We're going to do a climate cafe by somebody that's taught by the Climate Psychology Alliance next month. And we have some other things. If you search on resilience building on community, there's resources on the Resilience Hub, which provide a lot of the things that Fox has mentioned here that are really helpful. So thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
And
Oh,
Jeff, thank
that's
you so much.
awesome.
Those are CCL. I was going to point out that CCL has a lot of great resources for anybody that needs it, because CCL is well aware that this can be it's very understandable that a lot of us have this, anxiety. And, as, other people have pointed out, we really can't do our work if we're not, if we're just in that anxiety and not doing creative things about it. Just really quickly, just to close things off, I wanted to leave people with the thoughts that Martin Luther King talked very much about creative resistance. And that really applies to what we're doing here, that when you have a problem like this, you kind of have choices. It's perfectly understandable and natural to be anxious, but if you do something creative and you're participating, that's also going to help you with your anxiety. We only have 1 minute, so I really want to thank everybody again for showing up, because your time, I know how precious everyone's time is. And just do a quick thing to remind people that I really do encourage them, of course, to do some of the stuff that CCL. Obviously, sorry about the muting. CCL makes it really easy to participate. I hope everybody can come back next month. We're going to be I am so excited. We're having an Indigenous person I happen to meet who is going to be teaching us a bit about the medicine wheel. And this is somebody who belongs to, they're real. They are very active in the Indigenous community. So to me, that is a super honor to be able to have that kind of presence in our group. So I just encourage you. That's going to be next month. And please take care of yourself. Take care, and also take some of these resources to heart. And everybody have a great month.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Amy. Thank you, Andrea. Thanks, everyone.